of Toronto. Espada has received the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize, the Shelley Memorial Award, the Robert Creeley Award, an Academy of Americas Fellowship, the Penn Vision Fellowship, the Letras Boricuas Fellowship, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. The title poem of his collection Albanza, about 9/11, has been widely anthologized and performed. His book of essays and poems, Zapata's Disciple, was banned in Tucson as part of the Mexican-American Studies program outlawed by the state of Arizona. A former tenant lawyer in Greater Boston, he's a professor of English at the University of Massachusetts. Thank you, Martín, for being here. We are here to celebrate the release of Jailbreak of Sparrows. The poems in Jailbreak of Sparrows reveal the ways in which the ordinary becomes monumental, politically charged reports and tributes to the unsung, of arresting poems, that roots itself in the image, the musicality of language, and the depth of human experience. We're so excited to get to hear a little bit.
Buenas noches. Again, buenas noches. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'd like to thank Bonnie. I'd like to thank Michael Martinez. I'd like to thank Allison Whitebone, a teacher from Brookline High School, and welcome to the Brookline High School. We're here tonight, and I want to thank my wife Lauren for everything she does, and particularly for driving us through 4 hours worth of ballpark traffic. Which is why I look like this. So the plan is fairly straightforward. I'm going to read a few poems, 5 poems to be exact, from Jailbreak of Sparrows, about 15 minutes or so, and that will be followed by about half an hour conversation with Luke Salisbury, our conversation partner for this evening, and then we'll open it up for your questions, and I hope you brought some, and that will be followed in turn by the book signing pandemonium. So here we are, and I want to start off with a poem that takes me back. Speaking of books, book bands are once again with us. A few years ago, a children's book about Roberto Clemente was first banned and then unbanned in the state of Florida, where else? And that's why I want to begin with a Clemente story. As some of you know, Puerto Rican Baseball Hall of Famer Roberto Clemente died on New Year's Eve 1972, delivering earthquake supplies to Nicaragua. I was 15 years old, living in Valley Stream, Long Island. We had left my Brooklyn birthplace, and of course, we were the only Puerto Rican family in town, of course. So that's the setting for this first poem, and it's on page 13, if you have the book. Big Bird, Die for Your Sins. Barry was 6'6", 15 like me, floating layups and hook shots over our heads through the hoop in my driveway. We called him Big Bird for dwarfing us, for his slappy feet, for the mouth that hung in a grin in all our stories. We called him Big Bird because he would yell, "Foul!" every time anyone bumped him under the basket, as if we lived on Sesame Street. I liked Big Bird and his white boy afro. He never called me a greasy-haired spick under the hoop in my own driveway like Frankie, the clown on the block. On New Year's Eve, Roberto Clemente himself set foot on the prop plane at the airport in Puerto Rico, my father's island. Boxes for Nicaragua stacked up after the earthquake, knowing the dictator's Guardia Nacional would crack open the crates, greedy as a pillaging army if he did not loom over them. The DC-7, engined like a smoker's heart, 4,000 pounds overweight, sputtered 100 feet above the trees, then spiraled into the sea on a night when the moon deserted the sky, the keeper of a lighthouse dreaming drunk. A crowd kept vigil on the beach. His compañero, the catcher, dove and dove again between the fins that sliced the waves, till the propeller's twisted hand rose from the sea. But never the body, never the ball player, never Clemente, never. My father told me, Roberto Clemente is dead. I could swear my father's eyes were red. I had never seen my father cry. This must be hay fever in winter. My mother saw him cry once, watching the funeral of JFK on television, the black riderless horse and the empty boots and the stirrups of the fallen. Later, the day after the baseball writers voted Clemente into the Hall of Fame, as the boys under the hoop toweled off and scooped up Cokes from a cooler, I said, when my father told me Clemente died, there were tears in his eyes. No one said anything, not even Frankie the Clown. Big Bird stopped grinning. Big Bird was thinking. The whine in his voice was gone when he finally said, they only did that because he was Puerto Rican. They only did that because he was black. There was once an episode on Sesame Street where Luisa Maria taught Big Bird about the meaning of death, how we all die one day, and his yellow head drooped heavy as a sunflower. I feel sad, he said. I could have rolled the numbers out like the dice in my Stratomatic baseball board game. 317 lifetime average, 414 in the 1971 series, 3,000 hits, 12 gold gloves, the only walk-off inside the park grand slam in baseball history. I could have called on the spirit of a dead ball player to flood the screens in their heads with the leap and stab of the ball against the wall in right field that saved the no-hitter. The bark of the ball off his bat that fractured the pitcher's leg. I said nothing. I never said anything, even when Frankie would croon his favorite song in my face, Spicka Spooka. The other boys would bathe in it. The next game began. I guarded Big Bird. I stomped at his slappy feet, spiked my elbows into his rib cage, ran shoulder after shoulder into his back, blocked shots by jamming the ball into his chest. I knew nothing of karate. I kicked the air every time I yanked the rebound away. Foul! Yelled Big Bird, like a song on the jukebox nobody wanted to hear. Foul! This was my hoop, so I couldn't foul out. I wanted to see Big Bird cry like I saw my father cry. Big Bird sniffed. No one saw him sneeze. He squinted hard, but we all knew. That day, Big Bird died for the sins of the fathers that cursed the dark ball players on TV in the living room where their sons could hear it all. I had a vision of Big Bird rising above the palm trees, igniting in the air like a feathery piñata too close to the spark of a cigarette, crashing into the sea, the sharks feasting on yellow feathers, Luis and Maria on Sesame Street, explaining the meaning of a puppet's death as the nation mourned. Well, I actually lived in Boston for 11 years. I went to Northeastern University Law School, and I became a tenant lawyer with Su Clínica Legal, a legal services program for low-income Spanish-speaking tenants in Chelsea. You know Chelsea, right across the bridge from Boston, Gateway City, city of immigrants. My clients came from the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, Puerto Rico, the DR. They also were starting to come from someplace new, Central America. They were coming from Guatemala. They were coming from El Salvador. So I'm going to read a poem from those days and those experiences. And this particular poem is called The City Wears a Coat to Bed. The white army of winter spreads across the city. Boilers and radiators die in their sleep, their skin cold to the touch in the morning. The city wears a coat to bed. The city watches the wraith of breath rise in the kitchen. On Friday afternoons, the judges slip off their black robes and drive home. There is no light in the windows of the courthouse. There is no one to read the affidavit or sign the injunction to shove into the landlord's hand so that heat courses through the heart of the boiler and the looping hard veins of the radiator again. No one to hear the tenant's story translated, her sons and daughters shivering in their coats on a mattress, snot on their sleeves. The judges and the landlord home were stopping at a bar on their way home. She tells me instead, the lawyer who speaks Spanish and explains in Spanish why there will be no heat this weekend, why there is no one at the courthouse to listen, and still she pours her story into my ears till they swell to bursting. I walk her to the doorway of the office. The secretary is in the bathroom, the office space heater in the corner. Suddenly, I am steering the tenant out the door with the space heater in her arms, and she says, gracias, over and over, and I say, okay, okay, knowing the secretary would yell my name louder than the time a drunk with a lightning scar on his belly charged for the door naked, but for his socks and a Salvation Army blanket. The secretary would not miss the office space heater till Monday. I am the hero of this story, riding the bus home across the bridge till I remember the words I should have said about the glowing coils too close to the mattress. How every week another fire rolls the smoldering wraith of winter through the bedroom as sons and daughters sleep. How every week EMTs tuck white sheets over bodies dead as a landlord's boiler. I will dream with eyes open of windows, the coils of space heaters and the coils of mattresses glowing in every window. Well, it turns out even demagogues have their own poetry. What in the world do I mean by that? You have the book, turn to page 96. At his Save America rallies, Donald Trump would read a, quote, poem. Yes, actually the lyrics of the song, called The Snake, written and recorded by jazz singer Oscar Brown Jr. back in 1963. He based The Snake on Aesop's fable, The Farmer and the Viper, but Trump used it to demonize immigrants. Meanwhile, while all that was going on, the Department of Labor investigation into underage immigrant labor on the cleaning crews of slaughterhouses revealed more than 100 such cases in 8 different states. So that all comes together here. The Snake. At the Save America rallies, after the damnation of the criminal aliens breaking across our borders and 1,900% more murders, he would ask the crowds if he could read a poem. This has to do with immigration, he'd say. The crowds would whoop and yip. He'd read The Snake, words stolen from a song from the hand of a dead black singer who could not snatch it back. A jazz fable spun on vinyl, spun first by the fabulist of Greece centuries before Christ. The crowds would listen to the poem. Bikers for Trump, cops for Trump, Uncle Sam in his beard, the Statue of Liberty in her crown, the millionaire who sells pillows on TV. They would testify in t-shirts that said, Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president. They would hoist the stars and bars of signs that rhymed Trump 24 or before. They would see the movie of the poem in their heads. The snake, frozen on the road. The woman, scooping him up tight to nurse him with milk and honey by the fire. The incandescence of his skin brought back to life. The woman's kiss and the viper's venomous bite. Her question, why? Then the words oozing from his tongue. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. The crowd would howl at the moral, at the punchline, at the tender woman who would die of tenderness. Like a preacher spelling out the lesson of a parable, their president would repeat, immigration, as they slept. The bikers and the cops, Uncle Sam and the Statue of Liberty, the millionaire and his magic pillow. Adolescents from Guatemala scalded the killing floors at the slaughterhouse in Grand Island, Nebraska. Their hoses, like snakes, spewing rivers that bubbled in the steam. Around them, the blades of skull splitters and bone saws waited for their fingers to slip, fangs lurking in the murk of early morning, in the days behind the goggles on the faces of adolescents from Guatemala, sleeping the next day at Walnut Middle School, shaken awake by teachers who spotted the acid burns on their hands. Lauren is a writer and a teacher. Taught urban ed for many years. Developmental English, community college. Her day off, she would volunteer to teach adult literacy at a rehab center in Patterson, New Jersey. This is a product of that experience. She is the tutor in this poem. Page 48 of your hymnal. Gonzo. Everybody knew Gonzo. His cigarettes and cologne, his gold crucifix, the white t-shirt he wore to every meeting. They leaned closer to listen whenever he spoke in the circle at the rehab center, some with eyes shut, seeing his confessions of addiction's demons and sobriety's angels at war. No one knew Gonzo signed his name with an X. The tutor at the rehab center held up flashcards and sounded out the letters A, B, C. There was no alphabet song in Gonzo's head, no teacher at the blackboard. He said the letters one by one. At the letter S, he stopped. The tutor studied Gonzo's nose, long but not as long as the nose of the Muppet with the same name, S, she said again. Gonzo had no front teeth, no place for his tongue to go. He puffed and sprayed, a man unable to navigate the river of his own name, Gonzales. He hid his face in his hands, unlettered cards in his head, as if the tutor could not see him now. A sob surged through him, a beast chained to the rock of his ribs for 50 years, since the days the roosters woke him up for school in Puerto Rico. He wiped his face clean. Gonzo was clean. Clean fingernails, clean shaven, clean white shirt. The tutor waited, thinking, he doesn't know his letters, but he knows every street in Patterson by name. She squeezed Gonzo's wrist once, then again, till his eyes met hers. She held up the next flashcard. She said, say T. And I'm going to finish my reading with this poem. Next, I'll be conversing with my friend Luke Salisbury. Well, there are all kinds of love poems. This one's on page 77. It's a poem for my dear friend, teacher, and mentor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. His name is Steve Stern. And Steve and his wife, Florencia Mayón, are historians of Chile, where she was born and raised. Florencia is now in memory hospice. Some of you here and out there know the song Gracias a la Vida, thanks to life, made popular by Joan Baez, written by Violeta Parra. So this poem, and I'll finish with it, is called Florencia Again and Again for Steve Stern. The singers sang to Florencia Mayón today. The threshold singers stood at the bedside in memory hospice and sang. As the poster of Frida Kahlo looked on, as Florencia looked on. The only word she spoke was no. The only word still left on her tongue as she colored in her coloring book. The chorus sang as you walked into the room, and Florencia's eyes brimmed with the sight of you, husband, compañero. You slid behind her, arms looped around her neck, and she leaned back, lips sprouting for a kiss on the mouth once, then again. Let's sing to the singers, you said. You queued up the song on your cell. You sang, Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Thanks to life that has given me so much. Florencia sang in Spanish. Was Florencia again, the song drifting from a window in the girlhood Santiago of her head. She became the writer of histories she could no longer read, the teacher of students who would remember what she could not remember. Florencia again. When life in the song gave her the abecedario, she sang the word for alphabet from a spring so deep in the cavern of her brain, no neurologist could ever find it. Florencia again. When life in the song gave her la marcha de mis pies cansados, she sang about the march of my tired feet, loud enough to startle the pack-up nurses in the hallway. The march with you, her compañero, your tired feet trying to keep up with her. The march against the dictator of Chile. All the songs the crowd would sing. Florencia again. How do you kill an idea? Florencia said to me when I asked why so many had to die in Chile at an age when I still had to ask. 6 words I will carry like tiny shells of Chile as long as I remember what I remember. Florencia again. Gracias. You sang with Florencia at the bedside to the singers at Memory Hospice. You handed them the sheets with the printed lyrics of the song. Next time when you come, you can sing it to her. You said, Florencia again. My teacher, tomorrow you will turn the knob all hands dread, as if the steel would liquefy their fingers, walk through the door once more, and sing. And so, Florencia will become Florencia again, Florencia again and again. Thank you.
We've got to decide if we can be heard. We need these microphones. Good enough.
Well, thank you for that, Martín.